Hello, dear listener, and welcome back to Lost and Found, the podcast where we're figuring things out in real time, together. Now, something that I did not think I'd be worrying about in my 20s is my skin. I thought, puberty is over and aging hasn't really begun yet, so these are supposed to be the golden years. But alas, this has not been the case. Personally, I've been struggling with my skin over the past couple of months, and it has really reminded me how much of a knock bad skin takes on your self-confidence. And self-confidence and self-worth, as we know, leaks over into every aspect of your life. It influences how you move through the world, how you interact with others, the risks you're willing to take. And it goes so much deeper than just skin. And for me, skincare has always been personal. Let me tell you a little story. So, my grandmother is an absolute rock star. She had a pottery company when she was younger, which meant that she spent a lot of time in like hot, sweaty, dusty environments. And because of that, her skin really started to suffer. And she didn't find anything that worked for her. And because she's the badass that she is and such an entrepreneur at heart, she decided to start her own skincare company. And that was almost 40 years ago, I think 36 years ago. And since then, the company has now grown into one of the biggest and most respected skincare brands in South Africa, which is amazing. She also won Africa's Businesswoman of the Year, something like 5 times in a row. That's incredible. But anyway, so from birth, I've been using Villa Krause's skincare. I grew up in this world. I grew up loving these products. But since I've been traveling full time, obviously, there came a time that I ran out of my products. And I was forced to kind of just buy anything that I could find from pharmacies or retail shops. And since then, my skin has really been suffering to a point where I almost don't feel like myself because I think I've always taken good skin for granted and I don't really wear a lot of makeup in my day-to-day life. And now I'm at a point where I feel like I should be wearing concealer every day, but then I worry, does that worsen my skin? And it's just a bad cycle. So I've been curious to know more about skincare, to know more about how the skin works, what affects it. And as always, because this podcast is as much a learning and growing space for you as it is for me, I decided to invite Villa Krause Skincare's head formulator, Eileen, to sit down with me today. She has studied molecular biology and completed a postgraduate degree in biotechnology. She has decades of experience in the skincare industry, and she's worked with other massive skincare brands before moving over to Villa Krause Skincare. She's also the CEO of its affiliate company, DC Laboratories. Her resume is insane, her knowledge is insane, and I specifically appreciated her nuanced and scientifically grounded approach to everything we talked about. We got into skincare habits, myths, nonsense trend. I mean, we even talked about self-worth and holistic well-being. And some of the things she said really opened my eyes to basic skin truths that I think we miss because it just gets covered under all this marketing and trends and social media stuff that we're seeing. I think you're going to love this conversation. Let's get into it. Eileen, welcome to Lost and Found. Thank you so much for being here. So for people who don't know you yet, how did you become a formulator and what drew you to the world of skincare?
Honestly, I think it started when I was a teenager, frustrated with my own skin without even realizing it. So nothing seemed to work, and I remember feeling like every product promised the world but delivered nothing. And I think that frustration sparked something within me, a curiosity to understand why, and a drive to find solutions that actually work. So at the same time, my mom was a scientist and a skincare formulator. So I grew up surrounded by experiments, chemistry, and problem solving. So science was always fascinating to me, and I guess I absorbed a little bit of her love for it. So after studying molecular biology and doing a postgrad in biotechnology, moving into skincare really felt like a perfect way to combine everything I love: science, creativity, and problem solving into something tangible that can genuinely help people to feel better about themselves.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing a bit of that incredible resume. Because I think one of our biggest issues today, especially 20 somethings, because I mean, today we're talking about skincare for 20 somethings, is like, what do we believe?
Mm.
With social media and marketing campaigns and influencers, everybody is saying stuff about skincare. There's always a new trend. And at some point, you feel so overwhelmed and you try everything and nothing is working. And I think for me, it's like, well, what do you then believe? So it's lovely to have someone here with the credentials and with years of experience in the industry. You're someone we can learn a lot from. So when you look at 20 somethings today, what do you think we're getting most wrong about skincare?
I actually think you guys get a lot right. Okay, good. Because information is so much more accessible than in the past. So you made aware of issues before it really appears on your skin. So that being said, I think one of the biggest issues is expecting instant results.
Mhm.
So there's no such thing. And there's a lot of hype on social media about overnight fixes, miracle products, or the one serum that will change your life. And the truth is, skincare is a long game. Your skin is a living, changing organ, and it doesn't flip from tired or damaged to perfect overnight. And I think another mistake that people can make is jumping from product to product without giving anything enough time to work.
Yeah.
You really need consistency, patience, and a little curiosity about what your skin actually needs. If you start early and take care of your barrier, use the right ingredients over time, your skin will thank you and your mirror, and you'll save yourself a lot of money and frustration.
Yes, well said. And I think something that a lot of us struggle with sometimes is what's the basics? Because most of us are on a budget and we cannot afford these extravagant ranges with the vitamin C serum and algae serum and all these things. So if you could strip skincare down to the absolute basics, so like the non-negotiables, what would you tell someone to focus on first?
Okay, I think first of all, forget marketing hype because a lot of these products are designed to get you excited and the price tag does not reflect quality.
Mm-hmm.
Just bear that in mind. And non negotiables in skincare would, for me, be barrier function. So this means the skin's ability to act as a barrier because that leads to your skin being properly moisturized and you can protect your barrier by being careful not to over exfoliate, avoid harsh cleansers, like staying away from soap bars. Personally, I won't touch it. So even those labeled as all natural or made with organic olive oil or whatever, because the soap bar is natural doesn't mean it's gentle. So avoiding things that can strip and harm your skin's barrier function. And then, of course, the second thing is a sunscreen. It's the single most important thing you can do for your skin at any age. So if you start that early, the younger the better. Daily protection from UV rays prevents premature aging, pigmentation, and long-term damage. So everything else you do work so much better if your barrier is strong and that if your skin is shielded from the sun.
Mhm. That is super interesting. And I know we have a lot of listeners from all around the world. And I think my question, if I was someone living in, let's say, Norway or Austria, like right now we're sitting in South Africa and we are used to the South African climate. So would you say that sunscreen is just as important for people all around the world?
It's definitely important no matter where you live. And I think what's important to remember is that every region will have its own environmental aggressors. So in
Mm.
South Africa or in Australia, you will have sun and UV damage being the major driver of things that go wrong in your skin because it all causes inflammation and inflammation leads to things going wrong. But if you're stuck in Norway, where I'm sorry to say you don't see enough sun, you might have the reverse side of that coin being harsh cold.
Mm.
Harsh cold can dry out the skin and cause it to be reactive. But the baseline of your skin's issues will also be inflammation because dehydrated, dry skin can also translate to inflammation in the skin, which means premature skin aging. So they will have different results. Highly moisturizing, barrier supporting products, as a southern African country might need sunscreen.
I've never really heard it said that way. So the non-negotiable for skincare is protecting your skin barrier.
Yeah.
And you do that by protecting it from, what did you call it? Aggressors?
Environmental aggressors. So your specific set of environmental
Mm.
aggressors.
And you protect your skin then by looking at those aggressors. It could be harsh cold or it could be sun.
Yeah, so gentle cleansers, no soap baths,
No, so
no soap
bars.
baths. And be careful of over exfoliating. So, using cleansers with exfoliants like acids in there daily can lead to barrier damage if your skin can't handle it. So, a pH balanced, so meaning cleanser that's designed to meet skin's pH requirements of 5 to 5.5.
Okay, perfect. I love this. So we're getting down to the basics. It's not just putting a little cream on the pimple. We're really getting down to the skin barrier and how to protect that. I also want to know if someone could only start one helpful habit today for their future skin, what should it be?
Well, I think we spoke about sunscreen, and I think it's really truly one of the most important steps, especially if you are an active person, if you're outside, if you cycle, if you swim, if you run, or if you travel a lot, sunscreen goes a long way. And please note, not a sunscreen formulated in the United States, because they haven't updated their sunscreen regulations since 1999.
It's not the only thing that hasn't updated.
No, not the only thing, but it's a major thing. So I just do not trust sunscreens from the States. You get much better formulated sunscreens from everywhere else in the world. Australia, South Africa, Europe. South Africa is actually responsible for a lot of the sunscreen regulations that we use globally. We have a very good understanding around sunscreen and sun damage, obviously. So I think a valuable habit to add is, once again, picking what is the major aggressor in your environment. So if you're traveling, that might change from destination to destination. So whether it's sunscreen, whether it's hydration, making sure you meet your skin's needs for your environment. And then be gentle, not to overdo your skincare, but to stick with products that really work and have results on the skin.
Can we just get back to sunscreen for one moment? So I remember when I was younger, my mom was always lathering skincare on my face before I go out. And I'm very sorry to say that I got into the habit of not always wearing sunscreen as I got older. And for me, the biggest reason was it made my skin feel really oily and it would make my skin break out. So what would you say to people who are hesitant to use sunscreen because of that reason?
I think that's a major reason. And I think we need to understand that sunscreen technology has come leaps and bounds in the past 20 years, actually. So a lot of the sunscreens, especially sunscreens you buy in a retail setting, will use the old school filters. So filters designed, let's say, back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and those filters are all oil soluble, meaning you need quite a bit of oil load to solubilize your filters in order for them to be effective. So 50% of the sunscreen consists of an oil phase, and that can be too oily for certain skin types. But we are lucky to have seen quite a few new filters being developed. Sorry, United States, that you cannot use them over the past 10, 15 years. And these filters, some of them are water soluble. They have a much drier feel, and you don't need this high amount of oil. So you can look at companies who really specialize in sunscreens, and they will produce sunscreens in various formats so that you can find one that suits your skin type. Because the old oily ones really suited the dry, mature skin types, where a younger person or oilier skin type often struggled with this. So I think it's about finding the base, what the main ingredients are that suits your skin type.
That's interesting. And I'm also guessing then you should opt for sunscreen for the body and sunscreen for the face, two separate things?
I think cost will be a consideration there, because oftentimes really advanced sunscreens formulated for specific skin types or whatever for the face can be quite expensive. But you won't necessarily have the same issues on your body than you will have on your face. That being said, if you find one that works really well on your face, chances are it will work on your body as well. So I think it's really what's available to you and what you can afford.
Okay, amazing. That's a good tip. Thank you. So, just personally, for me right now, I'm in this weird phase with my skin where I've been traveling for quite a while, and you are the head formulator of Villa Krause Skincare, like we said. And Villa Krause Skincare was started by my grandmother 36 years ago. So, that's almost 40 years of legacy. So, I've been using Villa Krause Skincare my whole life, and I've never had problems with my skin. In fact, I'm one of those few lucky teenagers who I just wasn't a worry for me. I always got complimented on my skin. And now I'm in this weird phase, or I don't know what to call it, part of my life where it's an issue for me. And I think about my skin and I'm quite self conscious about it. I rarely wear makeup in my day to day life, but now I find myself wearing concealer and then wondering, is the concealer making it worse? And I think that part of that reason is because I was traveling for so long, so my products were finished. And so I started using kind of just stuff that you buy at the pharmacy. And obviously, I'm on a tight budget, so I'm not maybe buying the best quality stuff. And then also, I think something that I just realized during this conversation, maybe I did get a little bit of barrier damage because I wasn't wearing a lot of skincare. And so now it just feels like nothing is actually working on my skin anymore the way it used to. So, what do you think are some signs that your current routine isn't working? And how do you know when it's time to simplify or to change?
The biggest sign will be a disrupted skin barrier, and this can show up in lots of ways, and that is linked to your skin type. So you might look dull, the skin might feel irritated, you might break out in acne, or you can even have flare up of conditions like eczema. So if you notice these things, it's usually a signal that either you need to simplify or you need to start really supporting your barrier. So, too many products, harsh active ingredients, or over exfoliation can stress your skin instead of helping it. So, go back to the basics. Use gentle cleansers. Make sure you've got a good, proper, hydrating moisturizer. And then, once again, if you're in a region where it's necessary, use sun protection. And that gives your skin a chance to reset. And you'll often see it respond much better to the products that you keep using. So once the barrier is restored, then you can start introducing additional products to target specific concerns.
Mm, okay. I really like that. And so really targeting the barrier. And I'm sure that a lot of protecting the barrier and strengthening it.
Yeah, so when we talk about barrier function, it means the skin's ability to act as a barrier, to
Okay.
fulfill its function. So the moment the barrier becomes compromised, you lose more water from inside your skin to the outside. It also enables things from the outside to get in. So irritants
Mm,
and allergens, pollen, those type of things can gain access to your skin, and that leads to inflammation. Inflammation being the background issue behind any skin condition, whether we're talking acne or eczema. Inflammation is at the base of that issue. So if the skin can actually act as a barrier and protect you, your skin will be better moisturized and better able to protect you from environmental aggressors.
As you're talking, I'm assuming, correct me if I'm wrong, that a lot of factors that either damages or strengthens your skin's ability to act as a barrier has to do with things that don't even involve products, right? Like
Mm,
lifestyle
mm,
factors. So
mm.
maybe give us three simple things you wish every 20 something did daily that don't even involve products.
I think important here is drink water, get enough rest, and eat healthy. And as a bonus, I'll add be happy and don't surround yourself with toxic people. And here's why: emotional and mental well being shows up in your skin. So, stress triggers cortisol and another compound called substance P. These cause inflammation in your skin, they cause DNA damage, and they can accelerate premature aging. So, taking care of yourself emotionally and on an internal health level, making space for joy, avoiding
Mm.
toxicity is just as important than anything you put on your skin. So, it helps to think about your health and skin in a bigger picture. Every physical condition is influenced by five main factors. These are lifestyle, genetics, hormones, age, and environment. And
Mm.
of these five, only one, lifestyle, is truly within your control. Obviously, having ripple effects on the other, but only lifestyle you can control. So, what you put in your body, how much you sleep, and how you manage your stress can either reduce or increase inflammation. And chronic, low grade inflammation isn't just linked to premature skin aging, it can also contribute to long term issues like autoimmune diseases and even certain types of cancers. So, in other words, taking care of your body and mind is not just about looking good, it's about setting yourself up for an overall healthier life.
Yes. And I think while I'm listening to what you just said, first of all, I love what you said about making space for joy. It's so beautifully said. And that's what we talk about a lot on this podcast. But Just to get back to the lifestyle factors that you can control and how it has an impact on your skin. I know for a fact that's 100% true, but I just want to talk to my people out there who are maybe thinking, oh, but I know my best friend and she's just drinking every weekend and I'm sleeping and I'm looking after my skin, but her skin looks perfect. Can you talk a bit about, like, maybe for some people that's where the genetics come in,
Yeah.
but then long term, how that will show up in how you age?
Absolutely. So genetics is such a complex thing. And I mean, some people are blessed in having good skin, or they are naturally blessed with muscles or whatever. And some people are prone to gain weight, where other people are prone not to gain anything. So genetics really dictates how our body is put together, and it's something completely out of your control. Of course, any unhealthy lifestyle, any bad choices we make now can potentially show up later in life. For some people, to a lesser or to a more degree, depending on genetics. Another thing, of course, linked to genetics is your hormone balances, which are completely out of your control. And especially in women, we see hormonal fluctuations during the course of the month, and this can also affect what your skin looks like. And then environment. I mean, we live in a day and age where our food is filled with plastics, our water contains hormones. So there are things in our environment that wasn't part of our lifestyle 50 years ago.
Mm.
And this can also affect long-term health issues. And then, of course, age. But that one is coming for you, whether you do something or not.
Yeah, I would love actually to have a conversation with you about the whole anti-aging rhetoric and how I think it's a little bit problematic, how everything, all marketing geared towards women is like, don't age.
But I think that is changing, and I've seen it even in how our ingredient suppliers talk about it, the
Mm.
ingredients. So a shift has gone from anti-aging to well-aging.
Mm.
And I think what's important to remember is there's really two schools of thought here. Some people like the anti-aging thing of going for Botox, dyeing their hair, and that's perfectly fine.
Yeah,
And some people just want to go the route of well aging. I don't care about a wrinkle showing up, but I want to be sure I take care of myself so
yeah,
that I age in a, let's call it a responsible, healthy way. So it doesn't really matter which side of the coin you fall on, because ultimately making good, healthy lifestyle choices today will be beneficial, whether you go for Botox or whether you don't mind a wrinkle.
yeah. Well said. Thank you for that. And we were talking about overdoing it and how to know when things aren't working, over exfoliating, etc. So, to get some detail on that, what does overdoing it actually look like? How can listeners avoid damaging their skin by, like, chasing trends, you know?
So, overdoing it, once again, compromised barrier. So, you'll see redness, you'll have potential sensitivity towards products you didn't normally feel sensitive to. You might have burning sensations when you apply products. It might show up as breakouts. And even sometimes that tight, shiny feeling that people mistake for a glow can actually indicate barrier damage.
Oh, wait, that's interesting.
Yeah.
You know the trend on social media where it's the Korean skincare and the
Yeah.
models and everything is tight and shiny
Glassy.
and
Yeah.
glossy skin. So you're
Yeah.
saying that that might?
It might be if you overdo it. So if you over exfoliate and your skin becomes stressed, it might produce more oil
Mm.
and you might look shiny and glowy and whatever. So if you do it right, the glow will be healthy, but you will know because you will experience some sort of irritation or burning along with it. So just be careful not to do it, especially on chemical exfoliants. So if TikTok says exfoliate, use this serum, then that active, we do it, and suddenly we're layering things on top of each other that aren't meant to work together or not meant to be used during the course of the day, etc. Your skin is really stressed and irritated.
Yeah. And I think especially in your 20s, your skin changes so much from hormones and stress, like you said. So, what do you think? What should we expect? What is normal?
Your 20s is basically the puberty of adulthood. So everything is still settling, shifting, recalibrating. So anything can be normal.
Mhm.
It's usually a time of a lot of change in a person's life. You're leaving your parental home, you're traveling, you're studying, you're starting your first job. And all of these changes affect how our body responds. That can respond in hormone fluctuations. It can respond in higher stress levels, less sleep because we've got a very active social life, etc. So for some people, it might be a time where things get calmer, including the skin, and for others, it might feel like things are suddenly falling apart. You can see more dry, more oily. You can have random breakouts, uneven skin tone, and sensitivity that was never there before. So, one of the big surprises that a lot of especially women see is acne either returning or persisting post 25.
Yeah.
And this is normal. And we can bring that back to the environmental changes because all of a sudden there's hormone disruptors in everything. So, plastic is a major hormone disruptor. Excessive levels of hormones in drinking water is hormone disruptors. So now all of a sudden, something that everyone promised you will be gone by the age of 18, 19 is still there when you're in your mid-20s. And then subtle shifts in your skin can also be influenced by things like stress, sleep, diet, inflammation, as we've mentioned, or even changing your birth control. It might be a time where women start using birth control, and that coupled with travel and late nights can all contribute to your barrier becoming more temperamental. So I think it's not about trying to figure out what's normal because everything is going to be normal. I think it's about learning your skin's patterns and not pushing to change, but to figure out what's working and sticking to a simple routine to make sure your barrier is restored.
I really like what you said, not trying to figure out what's normal because everything is normal, because everything is kind of up in the air during this decade. Some people are literally pregnant and going through that kind of hormone situation.
Sure.
Other people are starting new jobs and they're working a lot of late nights. Other people spend a lot of time outside. I feel like everybody and their sister is running a marathon now. Everybody's picking up outdoor hobbies or they're traveling. So things are going to get disrupted. And I think what you said that is a really important takeaway for me is to realize that it's normal. My skin isn't doing anything wrong. It's just reacting and listening to what it's saying and moving with that and not being too harsh on yourself. I like that. I needed to hear that. Okay, so how do things like diet and exercise and stress actually show up on the skin? What are the most visible patterns that you see?
Your skin is really a reflection of what's happening inside your body. So when your lifestyle is out of balance, it tends to show. So diet is important because poor nutrition can cause chronic inflammation, and that can make the skin look dull, dehydrated, or prone to breakouts. Processed foods, too much sugar, or an unbalanced diet can accelerate fine lines and even affect the skin tone over time. So on the flip side, if you eat well with plenty of antioxidants, good fats, and hydration, this really supports the skin's resilience and glow. Now, exercise, on the other hand, is almost always beneficial because it can boost circulation, it helps with detoxification, it reduces your stress levels, and it can help contribute to the skin's natural glow. But if you overtrain and you don't recover properly, once again, we lead to low grades of chronic inflammation that can lead to all those inflammatory signs. And besides inflammation, if you exercise a lot, you might become dehydrated. So make sure you increase your water consumption if you exercise regularly. And then remember when you exercise and you're outdoorsy, and I see this a lot in my friends, we're almost 40. For you guys who don't
You
know
wouldn't,
me,
yeah, you wouldn't say that.
staring down the barrel of midlife. But I see it a lot in my friends, the active people, cycling, running, swimming, all of that, their skins have taken a hammering. So if you do exercise and you're outside a lot, please use sunscreen because you will regret it if you didn't. And then the last one that you spoke about was stress. So this is huge. Emotional and mental stress triggers so many things in our body. And we're not just talking skin, we're talking long-term health effects. So cortisol and other stress chemicals drive inflammation. Once again, inflammation looks like redness, it's acne, it's premature skin aging, and it can also affect our sleep hormones. So if you don't sleep enough as well, your skin will look tired and dehydrated.
I listened to a podcast the other day where this woman said, "Why do you think women always glow up after a breakup?" And she said it links to cortisol and how stress shows up in your skin, on your body,
Mm,
and your mood. And so a lot of that glow that you see in people post breakup who maybe let go of a partner who wasn't super great for them, and they are now finding peace again and
mm,
they are reconnecting with themselves and letting go of that specific kind of stress that actually can show on your skin as
absolutely.
healthier skin. But it's the same with a job. If you leave a job that's been really toxic for you
Mm,
or stressing you out, or when you set a boundary with a friend or a family member, when you choose peace and, like you said, make space for joy, that can really show in your glow.
absolutely. I heard the other day that trauma and stress long term can cause a fatty liver. I was like,
Mm,
what? This is insane because it's the same as if you consume a bottle of alcohol every night, just stressing and being in traumatic situations. So, yeah,
yeah.
take care of yourself.
Yes, that like that book, The Body Keeps the Score.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
also this concept of everything that you go through emotionally and past traumas, it shows up as aches and pains in your
Mm,
body and
mm.
on your skin. So that's definitely something to consider. Let's move into skincare trends for a second. I'm really curious to know what's one popular trend in skincare right now that makes you cringe?
I think hypochlorous acid. So this one drives me a little bit crazy. And it's everywhere on TikTok right now with influencers pitching it as some kind of miracle skin reset that can calm inflammation, zap acne, soothe irritation, all of that. And yes, in a clinical setting, it can be useful and most definitely will confer those benefits. And they use it in wound care, in post procedural skin care, and in certain dermatological treatments. But let's pause for a second. The problem is hypochlorous acid is extremely unstable.
Hmm.
It is sensitive to light, to temperature, to pH, to air, and most of the bottles people buy them in are plastic bottles, not sealed airtight, letting in some UV light. So the potency of that product by the time it reaches your bathroom's shelf is completely compromised. So it might actually effectively be useless by the time it reaches your house. All the research I've read around hypochlorous acid states 3 months, 3 months max stability. I've consulted a friend of mine who has got her doctorate in pharmaceuticals, and she's also dubious about this. I'm not convinced that stability and concentration is correct in those formulations, and that makes the product unreliable.
Is it a product that's the name or would it pop up in products with different names?
So you'll buy a hypochlorous acid product,
Mm.
like specifically that's used, and it's supposed to treat inflammation and disinfect and all of that. And it sounds scientific and it looks clinical, but in practice, the shelf life really affects the actual efficacy. So if you want to include hypochlorous acid in your skincare routine, I would suggest buying a little machine that can make it. So
Oh,
you
interesting.
literally mix salt and water and the machine runs the electrical current through it, and that creates hypochlorous acid.
Hmm.
And then you can use it on demand as needed,
Yeah,
and it will last for a day or two, and then you discard it and just make new product.
that is super interesting. Is there a better type of raw material or product that people should be using who don't want to make water and salt and electrical current thingies for themselves every day?
Hypochlorous acid has a few very interesting benefits, and any chlor based compound used for disinfection is extremely effective and quite gentle. You can use it on your mucous membranes and all of that. So it is a really difficult product to replace in a very small subset of circumstances, like wound disinfection or disinfection post microneedling and things like that. You can use alcohol, but alcohol is extremely drying and potentially irritating. So it's a difficult product to replace if you want those benefits. But I think it comes back to having a effective barrier and a healthy skin microbiota. If that is fine, you don't need all these disinfectant steps like hypochlorous acid will do. And
Mm.
also remember, hypochlorous acid can potentially damage microbes that should be living on your skin.
Yeah.
So be careful of overdoing it with a product like hypochlorous acid that really acts as a disinfectant by killing all living things.
Yeah. I love hearing the nuance with which you speak, and you can really hear the knowledge that you have, because I think sometimes we're out there and we're hearing things and you don't know what's somebody's background. You don't know what's on their resume, how well they're trained. And a lot of the times I think that, especially with social media, it's, oh, this is either the best thing that you can use or don't use it at all.
Mm.
So it was really nice to hear you speak with that nuance. Following from that, how do you think listeners can tell the difference between marketing hype and something that is maybe genuinely good skincare advice?
I think the louder they shout about something is usually one of the first red flags, because if it's punted as this miracle that will change your life, and oftentimes it's ingredients that's been around for decades, we would have found it out by now and everyone would have been using that single ingredient alone. So I think that's one of the things. And then good skincare advice is usually a bit boring. It sounds like protect your barrier, wear sunscreen, stay consistent, and don't overdo it. Because real science doesn't need the glitter and the glam.
Yes.
So I think a few things to look out for is check the source. Are you hearing this from either an experienced formulator, a dermatologist, a somatologist, or someone that works with skin on a daily basis? Or is it a get ready with me video? And that being said, they are amazing. Like, I watch them to figure out how to do certain things or whatever, but the source needs to be credible. Another thing is to watch out for fear-based marketing. If someone or a brand is telling you that everything else is toxic, while this product is pure magic and it's all natural and whatever, but there's no science, it's not necessarily going to be effective. It might not be unsafe, but it won't necessarily be effective. And then I think look for context, not absolutes. Genuine experts will explain when, why, and for whom something works, because there is no one size fits all, because we have this genetic factor that differs from person to person. We have an environmental factor that differs from person to person. So everything needs to be tailored for your specific set of circumstances. And then lastly, check if the claims match the formulation. So not every ingredient works in every form. Hyaluronic acid, retinol, vitamin C, the form, the stability, and the concentration matter far more than the name on the front of the bottle. So if these ingredients aren't formulated correctly, they'll either be completely degraded by the time you get them,
Sure.
or they'll be used in a format that your skin can't use.
Yeah.
So brands will be able to back it up if they know how and what concentrations or how to use the ingredients correctly.
Yeah. And that's also so sad when that happens and you're paying so much for a product. You think you're getting one thing, but they're not using it correctly, or
And it happens more often than you think. I often get questions, especially on the Villa Krauser brand. Why should we buy this brand if we can use that brand? For vitamin C, for instance. And this is such an easy test that everybody can do. I'm going to teach you. Vitamin C is called ascorbic acid, right? There are different forms of vitamin C. Ascorbic acid is the most active form of vitamin C, but it's extremely unstable when combined with water. So within the first 10 minutes, 90% of ascorbic acid has degraded.
wow.
So meaning by the time it's filled in the bottle, there's no active ascorbic acid
Wow.
left. But vitamin C comes in forms like sodium ascorbyl phosphate. So that's the water-soluble form of vitamin C that is stable. If you want to buy vitamin C serum, you turn the bottle around. If the first ingredient is water, and the form of vitamin C that they use is ascorbic acid, it's not going to work.
Wow.
So you can look for ascor. So there's oil-soluble versions of ascorbic acid. There will be some ascor in the word, ascorbyl tetrapalmitate, whatever. So long words. If it's ascorbic acid and if it's water, you can leave it on the shelf.
That is a really helpful tip. Thank you so much for that. I'm curious to know, what does your own bare minimum routine look like? And what does your treat yourself routine look like?
They look very similar. But anyway, okay. So it's not glamorous at all. I'm really an easygoing person. For me, it's just doing the basics properly, whether it's bare minimum or spoiling me. So a good cleanse, and then I'll take all the serums I'm currently using. So all the add-ons, whether I'm addressing pigmentation or it's something new I formulated that I'm testing, I just take all of them and pump 1 or 2 pumps into my hand, mix it and slosh it on. Because I think using it is better than not using it at all, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't have time, just getting it on your face, better than nothing, right? And then I'll moisturize or add a sunscreen, depending on whether it's day or night. So no 27 steps, just consistency. When I treat myself, I will add an enzymatic or a properly formulated chemical exfoliator. So once a week or once every 2 weeks, which is gentle and effective, and it really works for my skin type, gets rid of dullness, all of that. Then I will go to a hydration mask to boost my hydration because I've just exfoliated and potentially I'm losing more water from my skin than normal. And after that, I'll add my serum. I'll always include an antioxidant serum because all stresses show up in your skin as oxidants, and antioxidants can address them. So think protection and glow.
Yeah.
Then I will use something to improve my skin's microbiota, so the bacteria living on your skin. And the research on this is growing and growing and growing. The skin microbiota can help protect you against sun because they secrete factors that protect against UV
That's
damage.
interesting.
They help keep other bacteria in check so that you don't develop skin conditions associated with one specific bacteria getting the overhand. They can contribute to aging. So really taking care of your skin microbiota are important. And then lastly, I will add a serum that can contribute to cell renewal, something like bakuchiol, which is the natural alternative to vitamin A, to really help improve cellular turnover, which gets rid of pigmentation and fine lines and wrinkles. And then moisturize, moisturize, moisturize.
You said something about a chemical exfoliant, and now you said natural alternative to vitamin A. And that kind of made me think, so I used to be this person who anything that isn't 100% natural, I would really try to stay away from. And I think that I've heard a few things recently that made me realize that you can have a good balance between science and nature. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember that everything is a chemical. Water is a chemical. So when I say chemical exfoliant, it doesn't necessarily mean synthetic.
Oh, okay.
We say chemical when we refer to acids. So when you use a AHA, like glycolic acid, which is derived from sugarcane, or salicylic acid, really good for acne-prone skins. Salicylic acid is derived from willow bark. So chemical doesn't necessarily mean non-natural,
Okay.
especially when you're dealing with scientists, because we obviously talk in those terms. I think when people like the layman uses the word chemical, they'll often refer to synthetic. But you're quite
Interesting.
right, the balance is there, and synthetic doesn't necessarily mean safe, just as natural doesn't necessarily mean safe, because arsenic is also natural. It can poison you and kill you. Anyway, so yeah, there's a balance, and you need to understand that if a product is formulated properly, that is what makes it safe. Ingredient development has also come a long way, or ingredient research. So in the past, active ingredients were mainly created synthetically because that is the only technology that was at our disposal. But with the advances in biotechnology, we now have things like biofactories. So we can literally grow beneficial compounds in tobacco plants or in yeast cells or in bacterial cells, which two things happen. It makes the ingredients more consistent and natural. Remember, this is a natural process, but it also makes practices more sustainable because we don't necessarily need hectares and hectares of plants to produce a single ingredient. We can now grow them in these biofactories, in vertical farming practices, or in bioreactors. And we can really find out what gives certain organisms certain adaptive advantages and translate that into ingredients that we can end up using in skincare without needing to create them synthetically.
So that shows you how a product can be naturally derived, but with the use of modern technology, we make it more sustainable and we make it more
Consistent.
and potent. It's super interesting. Okay, next question. What's a simple, affordable product category or habit that you think is underrated?
Moisturization, it's the unsung hero. Like, we'll focus on serums and actives and sunscreens, which are all important, but moisturization is the key. I always tell people, if you meet an older person who didn't do any fancy skincare, but they just used an aqueous cream as a moisturizer, they are going to look better than somebody that never moisturized.
Wow.
That is the first step, because dehydration in your skin causes inflammation.
Mm.
All comes back to inflammation. So people get caught up in actives and trends, but the basic truth all comes back to barrier function. A moisturized skin where the cells are plump perform better as a barrier.
Okay, that's great. And we're getting towards the closing section now, but something that I want to ask you, skin is emotional, right? It
Mm.
really has a big link to self-confidence, self-worth, how we move in the world and how we interact with other people. So, what's a message that you want people in their 20s to hear about self-worth and their skin?
I think every 20 something needs to know that your skin is not a verdict on your worth. Skin is this living, reactive, incredibly complex organ, and it responds to everything, to hormones, to stress, to sleep, to heartbreak, to diet, to climate, and sometimes it struggles. When it does, it's easy to feel like you're the problem or you're doing something wrong, but you're not. Your skin's job is to protect you, and sometimes it's just showing you that the rest of you needs some care too.
Mm.
And yes, it's true, skin affects how we see ourselves and it affects how other people sees us. That's a human thing, but not a flaw. The good news is that both your physical and your emotional well-being are within your influence. When you look after your mental health, after your body, after your stress levels, your skin often follows. And when you add consistent, well formulated skincare on top of that, the changes can be remarkable. Just remember that it's an all round approach. So
Mm.
if your inner world is chaotic, your skin will whisper about it and
Yeah.
sometimes shout it. And if you care for your inner world, but never give your skin basic support, that shows up too, especially as the years go by. But none of it has anything to do with your value. You are not your breakouts, you are not your pigmentation, your dryness, your flare ups. You are a whole person with a whole life, and your skin is simply one part of that story.
Yes, you're a whole person with a whole life. So true. And okay, if you could give one piece of skincare advice, just, I mean, we've talked a lot about skincare
Yeah.
advice. We've said so much already, but let's say one takeaway. What would it be?
It's important to remember that youth does not last forever. And the better care you take of your skin and yourself, your body as a whole now, the better for later. And I think I'm at the age where, there are certain points or marks in your life, which if you cross that age boundary, you notice things starting to change. For me, one was 26,
Oh,
and then around
close.
30, 30 was tumultuous. There's a lot of things changing, and you're actually becoming more adult and in your career as well. For women, especially, there's a lot of changes that start around the age of 34. So, loss of muscle mass, perimenopause actually starts around that age. You
Wow.
won't necessarily realize it yet, but things start to change and slow down. So, realizing that you're not invincible and things won't last and stay in place the way they do right now forever. Late nights, bad habits, and neglect can show up, but your future skin is really shaped in your 20s. So, small habits that contribute to skin health will really benefit you in the long run.
Eileen, this has been such an incredible conversation. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, your knowledge. I have lapped everything up, and I'm sure everybody else has too. So, thank you for spending this time with me. I'm going to leave a link in the description to Villa Krause Skincare, to LinkedIn, so that people can see more about what you're doing there. And also, if you're curious about Villa Krause Skincare, you can find it in South Africa and Namibia. It's a salon based, consultant based company. So it's also there to help women be financially independent, have their own businesses. What that means is that you won't be able to find the products when you walk in retail stores like Discam or whatever. You won't find the products there. It is specifically in salons so that these consultants can also give you more personalized advice on what type of products will work for your skin. You can also buy the products online. So I will leave a link in the description. You will be able to find your nearest consultant or salon in the link, or you can just buy it online directly from the website. That would be great. If you are anywhere else in the world, Villa Krause will reach you soon, hopefully. And if not, you now have the basic knowledge to be able to see for yourself what works. If you like this episode, please leave a rating and a review. It really helps the podcast reach the people who need to hear it most. And if you have a friend struggling with their skin who needs to hear this, please send it to them. That's how the community grows. Before I say goodbye, I want to remind you to listen to your skin, be kind to yourself, take care of yourself. And as always, don't forget to get a little bit lost. That's where the magic finds you. Until next time.